I make toys or action figures, models out of paper. And here's what I use to do it. So with all these tools, a bit of imagination, and an insane amount of effort that goes beyond anything a sane person would put into making things out of paper, will result in this. And these. Number 1, scissors. They're just used to cut the paper. That's it. I have 3 types just because you don't actually need 3 types, just moving on. Number 2, sticky tape. I have 2 types. First, your standard reflective one that I use for parts like the frame and anything that's not visible on the surface. And then I have a matte one that isn't reflective. And so this one's a lot less noticeable on the surface of the paper. I use this for all the external parts that you can see, especially lighter colors. It does look a little cleaner than the reflective one, but in some cases it's still really noticeable, particularly on darker colors. Like Goku's hair here, you can see both of the types of tape I use. The tape is always going to be noticeable to some extent, like you can't really avoid that. I mean, maybe I think I could build all of these in a way where I don't need tape on the outside to hold everything together, but then people wouldn't believe that they were really made out of paper. And, well, that would be a problem. Next is pencil. Just the basic, I have no preference here. I don't even know if it's an HB or whatever other kinds of lead there are. Doesn't matter, just use what you have. Next is ink pens. What do you call these? I use the Copic multi-liner ones because they were available and they have many different sizes, but I used to use these ones, basically because they were just what I had around the house. The only thing I recommend here is getting a really thin one like the 0.3 because I draw very small things, so that's useful. Copic markers. These are what I use for all the coloring, and they're great. So I do recommend using these because they can blend colors together really well and don't leave these horrible streak lines, but just use whatever you have. If you like colored pencils or painting or whatever else I can't think of, do that. Look. All the materials I use are not the best ones available, I think, because it doesn't matter. There are so many areas to constantly improve outside of just the tools you are using, so don't worry about it. I spend like no time thinking about whether the tools I use are the best ones. Copic markers are supposedly the best for traditional drawing, but I didn't know that when I started buying them half a decade ago. I just walked into the closest art store and just wanted one single color and they were selling these. The point is to just do the best you can with what you have, because that's all I do. And anyway. Alright, so paper, what you've all been waiting for, the secret sauce, the magic material, and it's just your standard printer paper. Nothing special about it. Actually, no, I do use 4 different types of paper, but for the frame and all the joints, it's just any scrap paper I have laying around. Doesn't need to be anything special. The second type I use is just card. It's basically just paper that's twice as thick, making it perfect for the areas of the frame that need to be a little stronger. And the last 2 types of paper are just the ones that work well with Copic markers. Because Copics are alcohol-based, the ink can bleed a bit when used on the paper that doesn't absorb the ink well. So I use a blending pad and the Express-It blending card. The blending card holds the ink best, so I use it for all of my drawings. The only issue is it's expensive. So a cheaper alternative would be to use a blending pad. It just comes in a pad like this, and it still holds the ink very well for the Copic markers, but it's quite thin. However, being thinner means it does have its uses in forming a 3D shape with paper. Because the paper is so thin, when you make little cuts and overlap the paper, like when rounding any shape with a piece of paper, it's a lot smoother and a lot less noticeable as opposed to the much thicker and more rigid blending card that I so often use. The short answer is I use both, depending on what I feel best suits the part I am making. It's an intuitive process after all. And finally, I use the double-sided tape and glue. Now, these are the 2 things that actually hold everything together. Basically, anytime I want to make something strong or bond 2 things together, I'll have the 2 parts, I'll glue them together, and then I'll wrap those parts with a piece of card and double-sided tape on the inside of that card. So the double-sided tape will hold everything together immediately, and then once the glue dries, that leaves it very solid, because the glue that I use is this one. The Premium Craft Glue by, was it Helmer? And this one was really good because what happens is when it dries like a very solid kind of plastic. Pretty much like a hot glue gun. So if you have a hot glue gun, use that as well. I don't really know what the exact best glue to use for my projects are. This is just the one that I happened to find and it works. However, the thing that I would recommend, the entire point of this video is just doing the best you can with what you have now. Over and over and over again every day. That's how any progress is going to be made. I know for certain that if I had worried about whether or not the materials I was using were the best ones, or I concerned myself with what other people were creating and how they were creating it, I wouldn't have done anything that you've seen on this channel right now. So figuring things out for myself has worked out pretty well so far. I don't want anyone else to create paper models the way that I do. I want people to create things the way that they would do it, right? Like, I want people to see what I can do, what I have done, and what I'm going to do with just paper and the few simple materials that I showed in this video, and then realize that they could do anything, their own thing, as well as I do my thing. So go out and do your thing, you know? Alright, so thank you for watching, everyone. I appreciate your time, and I will see you next time. I still don't know how to outro a video. Just bye.